Managerial accounting is all about making decisions. What we're going to do in this phase of our studies is think about what costs and benefits are relevant to a particular decision. Now that might seem really obvious, but there are some details that we need to consider. Take this for example. Last February 2018, I had to go to Troy, Michigan to present at a MICPA seminar. And I really had a couple of options. I am an airplane pilot, so I could choose to fly this airplane, which I did, as you can see by this Snapchat, time to head back to Grand Rapids. Or I could drive my car. No, this is not my van. This is actually my son in his wonderful Laker outfit right there in front of a van that we saw in Petoskey. It just was kind of interesting. It actually says cat scratch fever on the hood. So I thought, well, yeah, I could either drive the car or take the airplane. And I would like to just point out again, this is not my vehicle. It's just up there for fun. So what are the relevant costs and what are the relevant benefits? Okay. Now, when I discuss this concept in the classroom, students will come up with some of the most obvious things like, well, if you drive the car, you're going to have to put fuel in the car versus putting fuel in the airplane if you choose that mode of transportation. And, well, vehicle gas, I'm recording this in early 2019, probably cost about $2 a gallon to put gas in a vehicle, and it's probably closer to $4 a gallon to put gas in the airplane. Okay, so there could be a cost disadvantage potentially for flying the airplane. What about this? At 5 o'clock as I'm leaving Troy, which as you probably know is a suburb of Detroit, I was flying back to Grand Rapids looking down at traffic snarled in a standstill, and I was actually able to make it home and have dinner with this guy. Now, what is the value of that benefit? That's what we're talking about here, is looking at alternatives and looking at the differential costs, the differential benefits, quantifying those, and using that information to make a decision. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I chose to fly the airplane, and I did get to have dinner with my son Blake and with my wife and my daughter, and those benefits definitely outweighed the costs for me. So let's just go through some of the major considerations. We'll look at calculations in a different video, but I just kind of want to outline some of the things you should be thinking about. Any decision that you encounter, you need to first of all identify the alternatives. Could be 2, could be 3 or 4, but we need to know what are the options on the table. What's the menu of alternatives? Fly the airplane, drive the car. So we identify the alternatives. Then what you have to do is isolate differential costs and differential revenues. These are the things that, well, it's in the word differential. They differ between alternatives. If you choose one option, you won't incur this cost with the other option. So take this as an example. If I fly the airplane, I had to pay for an Uber to go from the airport to the place where I was speaking. If I drive the car, I did not have to pay for an Uber. I would obviously simply drive to the location, park the car, go inside, and give my presentation. So the cost of an Uber is a differential cost. It differs between the two alternatives. In fact, we sometimes would call it an avoidable cost. If I drive the car to Detroit, I could avoid the Uber cost. So the Uber is an avoidable cost. So isolating those costs and also revenues and benefits that differ between the alternatives, the good things and the bad things. Now, if something does not differ between or among alternatives, then it's irrelevant. If I were trying to decide whether we should close a pizza restaurant or not, and we have multiple pizza restaurants, and we have a regional general manager who oversees all of those restaurants, and if we close one pizza restaurant, we still would have to pay the general manager. He or she would just have one less restaurant to oversee. Then that manager's salary is not a differential cost. It's not avoidable if we choose one alternative over another. Opportunity cost. Opportunity costs are relevant, but they're often overlooked because they're not staring us in the face. Opportunity costs don't get listed on an income statement. They don't get listed anywhere in the accounting records per se. At least it's not obviously in there. So the opportunity cost is the next best alternative. What is the opportunity cost of having you watching this video right now? Okay, what you have to think about is, well, what would I be doing if I were not watching this video? I actually poll my students in class in a real-time manner when I ask this particular question. Number one answer, sleeping. Number two is usually shopping, or sometimes maybe studying for another class. Sometimes people say working. But yes, number one, if you were not watching this video, if you're anything like my undergraduate students at least, sleeping is the opportunity cost. So the opportunity cost is the cost of the next best alternative. If you don't do this, you could do this. Relevant, but easy to overlook. But never forget about non-financial factors. It's easy to look at the bottom line when the math says a certain decision should be reached. Okay, if the math says no, the answer might be no. But don't forget about those non-financial factors. Think about my decision to fly instead of driving. Flying is more expensive. Not significantly in this particular case, but I know that it was more expensive. But as I looked at this, the increased cost was not exceeded by the increased benefit. Coming home, having dinner with my family, spending the evening with the family instead of dealing with Detroit rush hour traffic and all the stress that goes along with that. So even when the math suggests that the answer should be no, well, the answer could be no. But don't forget to assess those non-financial factors, because there are non-financial benefits and costs that really should be included in a decision. Often difficult to quantify. Okay? It's easy to quantify dollars and cents with like fuel consumption or the cost of an Uber. Kind of hard to put dollars on the cost or the benefit of having dinner with my family in a particular evening. But at least we can take a look at what the differential cost is, and then we can ask ourselves the question, is it worth it?